أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون.
Um, I'm going to ask Brother Noor, who has had a lot of interaction with the parents because he runs the Tower Hamlets Parents Association, and I'm told there are about 1,000, if not more, parents who consult him, and he gets the brunt of all this. If I could ask him to share very succinctly, and if I can just say the legal points we will address with Sean and Sam. But Brother Nord, what is it that your association have been getting, and what is it that parents have been saying to you? You know, what is the problem? Because from everything we've seen, and Brother Ahmed and Brother Shaykh Shams have explained that DFE guidance, and as we've said at the very outset, the LMC and the others have obtained a legal opinion from a Queen's Counsel who says, look, the LBTH guidance is just a guidance. It's just not mandatory. What is mandatory is the schools to consult parents. That is the part that is mandatory. What is it that you've been hearing on that front? If I can come back to you, go to you, Brother Nord.
Okay, I'll try to be as quick as possible. I know time is running out, but there's quite a lot of points needs addressing. I think first and foremost, I think the overarching thing that needs to be taken into consideration is parents are the primary educators of children. And that's where all of this is actually stemming from. The DFE guidance has been set out, and within that, obviously, even in that process, there are a number of concerns within that. However, the DFE have left the guidance relatively broad that gives scope for schools to accommodate different communities and where the children come from different faith backgrounds as well. But what we're seeing in Tower Hamlets, where the predominant majority of pupils in schools tend to be from the Muslim community. So on average, about 63% is the average across Tower Hamlets that the pupils are from Muslim. There's some school where you go into 90% and more. It seems very strange, the approach that the schools are taking in regards to the implementation of the RSE. Now, obviously, we'd mentioned, and I just need to highlight again, because I've seen a lot of questions coming in, the areas of concern. Generally speaking, RSE in itself, the curriculum is very much it's an okay curriculum. You know, I think the vast majority of parents do not have a concern about. They do teach many elements in regards to safety, in regards to relationships and bullying and many other aspects. So these are very actually important aspects that are good for the education. However, there are a few concerning areas, especially for those who are from faith backgrounds, predominantly say Muslim faith as well within the Tower Hamlets. Now, they come down to the age appropriateness of the topics that are being taught, not necessarily the topics in itself. I don't think there's any hiding to say that the community, and I think there's, again, a myth that gets thrown around by those who are, very much calling out anybody who raises these issues as homophobic, or in fact, I look at them as well very much being Islamophobic, because they automatically associate the religion with anything that's said that they deem is against LGBT to be homophobic, and that isn't the case. Now, from these comments are that, and these myths that they spread, that we're trying to deny that people from the LGBT exist. I don't think anybody's denying that. They do exist, and they've existed for thousands of years. And I don't think that is what is being talked about. Rather, they're talking about children and the age that they are being exposed to these things. And it can be very confusing for some young children. And there are many cases where children, even up to, if they're starting from the age of 5, there's some children who are still not fully able to use the toilet on their own. And in schools, yet they'll be talking about certain relationships, which again, they may be not necessarily aware of and confused about. So the point being is, it's the age appropriateness of these topics that are being taught. And alongside with that as well is the naming of the sexual organs of the body. And what you see here is that the schools are using 2 points. They're saying an angle of is required in RSE. However, in the RSE guidance, it's not there. Then they're saying it's required from safeguarding. And these are what the parents are saying, the schools are telling them, safeguarding. However, if you come from the aspect of safeguarding, the issue is knowing a name of a body part doesn't prevent you from abuse. What prevents you from abuse is knowing how to be safe about what is it that a child needs to do if anything was to happen to them, if they're in a certain situation. And this can all be done, as Sheikh Ashik mentioned, the NSPCC have their PANTS program. In fact, I'm very much on the topic of safeguarding. I published 2 books that are for children that talk about the issue of safeguarding. Again, about inappropriate touches and body safety specifically. And so these are all resources that can be used that are, again, addressing the issue of safeguarding without having to even go into the names. Now, naturally, children will know the names of this alongside when they learn about puberty and the scientific names. So no one's denouncing the fact of learning the scientific names is good. It is at the right age. And this is what we're coming to. So, and the other issue of concern is a lot of schools are pushing the age of teaching about puberty at a younger age, where a lot of children are not actually reaching puberty at that age. And so they stem to be the 3 concerning issues about the teaching of different types of families with children and talking about same-sex families. And then you're talking about the naming of the body parts and puberty. They tend to be the 3 contentious areas. So therefore, what is really, and another point about safeguarding, which is really important, just the current thing that's happening, that all of these reports of children who are now reporting how they have been abused and harassed sexually in schools. And now Ofsted is having to go back and do a search of different schools about the abuse that these children will be facing. Now, if I just logically thinking, do these children who are actually in secondary school, do they not know the names of the sexual body parts? They do. Yeah. However, does this prevent them from being abused? They haven't. They've still been abused. So what is missing in the education is about how they can stay safe themselves. And that's what we should be promoting, not necessarily that. Additionally, the point about naming the body parts are then using the science curriculum. However, if you look for the science curriculum, that is not what is explained by knowledge of the external body parts. And they clearly state it within the science curriculum, you'll see as well. So what ends up happening, there's a trust breakdown between the schools and the parents. And then what happens is the schools then rely on their default at saying that the local authority telling them that they have to do this, but you speak to local authority and they say, no, it's up to the schools. And so this is cat and mouse, and parents feel very lost in this process. And it can get very frustrating for them. And we know as a collective here, from the different organizations that are here, we actually met with the mayor on a couple of occasions, the mayor with Danny Hassel, with Kate Smith. Now Danny Hassel has been replaced by Asma Begum. And we've met with them. And even in those meetings, the mayor himself has said clearly that he agrees that naming of the sexual organs doesn't actually help in the safeguarding approach. So he even agrees logically it doesn't make sense. However, the council still haven't moved or budged on that point. And so it's really important to understand. Like I said, many of these politicians, the mayor, the councillors, and the MPs, Kate Smith, have been invited here, but they haven't turned up. Because there's also a case of, are they hiding away? And that's a question we need to ask. Are they hiding away from public scrutiny on this issue? Because there is it is a highly contentious issue, and the parents do not feel their voices are being heard. Then we move down onto schools. What's actually happening in the school ground? The schools, many of the parents feel, are bulldozing through a policy. Now, in the guidance, it makes it clear that, yes, parents do not have the right to veto. However, parents' views must be taken into consideration. So the school are unable still to demonstrate how they've taken the parents' views into consideration, and the faith background and the age appropriateness. And these things are not being very clear. And the way they've done this is through what we call closed consultations. So they've been having consultation forms online where parents fill it in. And they are closed. So they just say, we will be teaching about this. What year? Year 1 or year 2? They don't even give the option to say latter years, nor do they give the option to even say, I don't want it to be taught, for example. And so these are non-statutory elements. The DfE makes it clear. And on the legal side, I think Sam and Sean will address this. I don't want to go into it now to repeat it again. But these are bits that they close off the consultation. So the consultation doesn't seem to be proper and to be fair. And then in the end, what happens is, if a parent has no choice to select year 1 or year 2, they then select year 2 because they actually maybe want year 6, for example. Then their feedback will come back and they'll say 100% of parents said year 2. And this data is skewed. And so there is a massive breakdown of trust between parents and schools, and between parents and the local authority. And unfortunately, it's brewing a very dangerous cocktail. And it's the last thing that we want. We are trying our best to help support parents and schools in order to have come to a middle ground agreement. There are a few schools. There are some schools that I work with specifically, and there are some schools who are, alhamdulillah, have listened to the parents and come to a middle ground. And that's what we're asking for. Come to a middle ground. You want to make it a win-win situation, not a win-lose in either way, because it won't really benefit the school, nor will it benefit the parents. So that is really the key part that we're trying to kind of push through. That we want to ensure that the consultation is fair, that the views are taken into consideration. And I think in terms of some of the approach, I just need to mention it's important that parents should be engaging with the schools. They should be speaking to their head teachers, speaking to the relevant individuals of staff, members of staff who are actually sharing this information, and ensuring that the consultations are done and raising these specific questions and then requesting meetings. Yes, you might not meet face to face, you can meet on Zoom, but holding the parents to account and raising these specific points. And it's really important, because if you don't address these points, the schools, unfortunately, they're pushing through on certain policies which you may not be aware of. So really, key thing is we're raising the awareness. Parents go engage with your schools, and thereafter, if the schools still are not complying with the legal guidance, we'll hear from our legal advisors, Sam and Sean, in regards to what are the next steps that can possibly be taken. And with that, I'll leave you at that.
Thank you very much.